side that has faced censorship often, many times when we speak about the boycott, the first thing they say, as you just mentioned, is you're trying to boycott other people. Artists should never boycott art. What do you say to that logic?
I would say, please meet the Palestinian filmmaker who isn't allowed to make a film because of the Israeli government's refusal for locations, refusal for work permits to enter, being detained so the filming can't take place. I mean, that's real censorship. The Israelis, I mean, we know several instances of a very good filmmaker called Anne-Marie Jassir, made a very good film called Salt of the Sea. The difficulties that were put in her way to stop her making the film that she wanted to make by the Israeli state, that's real censorship.
I just, when this event was first publicized and I put it out there, I got about 30 to 40 emails from Palestine, people asking me to ask you this question. So if you want to hit me after I ask it, it's all right. But everyone is saying, you've gotten so close to the Middle East that now you've filmed in Iraq. When is the film about Palestine?
I really just wish, speaking personally, I just wish I had the talent to speak, you know, another language. I wish I had the insight to go into another culture and understand. Do you like some water? You dropped dead.
Yeah.
Wasn't that hard a question?
Sorry.
I mean, the great problem, unfortunately, is that there are many very vibrant and important issues to deal with. But unfortunately, we're limited by the talent or lack of it by the people who make the films. And what really should be, you know, I would say to your friends back in Palestine, is that they should be making it, you know, and then they need the support. But it's like the young people you mentioned, when they put in a report, put in an idea, they say there's not a lack of balance. I think what we'd like to do is to support them to make their own films, because I, as a writer, would never have the insight or the understanding or the depth of knowledge or be able to capture the subtleties or the contradictions that they would be able to do. So I wouldn't dare make it for these reasons. And but what would be wonderful to do is to be able to support them to make their own films.
Before we open it up to questions, that is the point of the Toronto Palestine Film Festival. It's not just to show a week of films here in Toronto, but it's also to support Palestinian filmmakers, to make sure that their films are showing. And this is a plug to make sure that you buy your tickets as soon as possible. So I'll take questions. I'll make sure there's racial and gender parity in the asking of questions. So please keep your hands up, and I will call on you. And please speak up. I know, so everyone can hear you when you ask.
Opinions.
Or questions or comments.
Or insults, okay?
Back there.
Yeah, I just have a very simple question. Why do you make films?
I can't do anything else, really. I don't know, I'd be unemployed otherwise. I don't know, well, why do you make films? Well, it becomes what you do in the end. But then, why do you make these films? Well, because it's a process of just trying to explore how the world is and why it turns and the way it turns and how it works and what are the conflicts and what lies beneath the conflicts, and also just to capture and celebrate people's lives often, and just record things how they are, you know, and just try and share experiences, share jokes, share comedy, share tragedy, share stories. But really, I guess it's to, I mean, out of all that, it's to try to understand how things are, and that's the exploration you go on when you make a film. You know, it's an exploration. It isn't like a formula which you apply. It's an exploration where you see where you're going to have to go.
That's not that. I'll second that.
This is a question for Paul Laverty. You were premiering a film of yours, Even the Rain, here at the Toronto International Film Festival, and it's probably one of the most brilliant films that exists about neocolonialism. Just wondering if you can talk a little bit about it.
Well, thank you very much. I didn't even plan that question. Well, it's some of my friends are going to see it tonight, so I'll try not to say too much about it. And to increase expectation only makes the film more difficult for a higher mountain to climb. But briefly, it's a story of there's two time zones in it. It's the story of the arrival of this iconic figure, Columbus, who's treated as a hero in the West. And we still have Columbus Day, I think, is celebrated in the United States. In Spain, it's a national holiday. It's the day the army marches up and down, you know, and with it goes an idea of conquest and superiority, and of bringing a superior language and the Christian faith, you know, to the pagans. And that's been part of the myth. There's other people who have undermined it. But anyway, it's a very powerful and important myth. It's actually how Howard Zinn starts off his wonderful book, looking at that myth. And he actually has an examination of what Cologne set in motion. The hunting for gold, the slaves, so we look at that. And I actually wrote the entire piece as a historical fiction first, but the great problem with it, when it's 500 years ago, it can seem very distant, the language always looks wrong, and we wondered about trying to do it through a 21st century consciousness. And the idea we had was to do it through the idea of a director and a producer. But the idea of making a film about filmmakers just sounds really boring, really. And so they're ambushed in that endeavour by the water wars that took place in Bolivia in the year 2000, when a huge multinational privatized the water in the city of Cochabamba in Bolivia, and how the local population rose up against it. So we tried to mix the filmmaking of and these two stories together. And I'm not sure we've really managed to meld those two different things. But what was really interesting though is when you looked at the language of 500 years ago and you looked at the language of now, and it really was quite surprising, because 500 years ago they took their gold, and now through contract, through international law, through commercial treaties, they're actually privatizing and taking away the most precious commodity of all, which was water. So we play with some of these ideas, and anyway, I'm glad you got a chance to see it.
There's a question here, and then go ahead.
Yeah, Ken, I think I know the answer to this question. I haven't seen all your films, but there is currently going on a Free Gaza Flotilla movement, started or initiated by George Galloway. There are a host of boats scheduled from all over Europe and North America scheduled to descend on Gaza this year. The Israeli press has referred to it as the mother of all flotillas. I think I know the answer, but do you find that as exciting as I do? And there's a Canadian boat being campaigned now in fundraising, in that people seem to be taking control of the issue outside of their governments and actually doing something, and doing something in concert throughout the world.
Well, it's an amazing project, and I'm full of admiration for the people who will do it. I think it's very difficult to be too much of a cheerleader when you're not going, because it's a very dangerous, hazardous thing, as we know.
You want to go?
Well,
got a spot.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fantastic idea. I mean, it's clearly, but we know the people we're dealing with, so it's not an easy choice to make. So I'm full of admiration for the people who go.
I think what you say is very, very important too, because we talked about that disjunction between what international law says and its non-implementation. And I think that's what's happened, and we've seen it growing, is that civil society has said, well, if they're not going to do anything, we must do it. And another very interesting initiative we came across is the Brussels Tribunal, that the hearings that have been taking place recently in Barcelona, and I think they're now moving to London. And what they're trying to do is be very, very practical. They're trying to examine, where European companies and institutions have been illegal in their support of the Israeli state.